I've just watched Erislandy Lara versus Delvin Rodriguez. Erislandy Lara is clearly a guy who some people are going to like, some people are going to hate. I quite like him. I think he's a really, really skilled boxer, and I think some of the things he does in the ring are so advanced, and I really appreciate watching that. I guess Lara stereotypically is considered a back foot defensive fighter who runs around opponents, great set of legs and jabs people's heads off and tries to steal rounds on the back foot. I guess the classic sort of perception of Erislandy Lara is when he fought Canelo Alvarez and, he was deemed to run and, hide and try and just fight off the back foot for the entire 12 rounds. I appreciate Rodriguez is no world beater. I appreciate that we're talking a different class of fighter here to Canelo. But in this fight, we also saw Erislandy Lara coming forward a bit more. It wasn't a purely back foot performance. We saw him coming forward. We saw him putting punches together, throwing good aggressive combinations. He perhaps didn't show the killer instinct that he could have done in stopping Rodriguez, but nevertheless dropped him on the way, and put in a bit of a beating, really. And Erislandy Lara, to me, is an entertaining fighter. He's a guy who I think could give the top guys real problems, because what he offers is so different. He's so well schooled, he's so well trained, he's so technically good, that in my eyes there aren't obvious technical flaws to his game. This is a guy who can move, he's very defensively minded, he throws nice combos when he wants to be offensive, he's got inside and outside game, he's versatile, and people don't really get that about Erislandy Lara. They don't see versatility, they just see him as a runner. But believe me, he's got it in his locker, he just knows when to use it. My thought, and I think this is something that isn't discussed enough about him, is his size. After the fight, he called out Mayweather, he called out Miguel Cotto, and he called out Triple G. And people seem to instantly accept that Lara would make it at 160. But for me, that's a big question. There's been 2 Lara fights that I've watched recently against Rodriguez and against Isai Smith. And on both times, I thought he looked noticeably the smaller man. I appreciate he's a bit of a rangy individual, but if you look at the size of his back, if you look at the size of his chest and his trunk, if you like, he just appears to be a physically smaller man, even than the likes of an Isai Smith, for example. I thought in that fight, Smith was really noticeably bigger than Erislandy Lara. So that is a concern for me. With him fighting these names up at 160. I appreciate that if he fought Cotto, it would probably be at something like 155 anyway. If he fought Mayweather, it would be at 154. So I guess the real name is Triple G. And I think Triple G is the one to concentrate on, not only because he's the one at 160, but he's also the most realistic of all the fights to happen. Let's be honest, Floyd Mayweather's not going to fight Erislandy Lara. Floyd's all about the commercial reasons behind the fight. And there's got to be more commercially, financially attractive fights out there for him than Erislandy Lara. Moving on from that, Miguel Cotto, we know he is very selective about who he fights. We know he's got a fight coming up with Canelo. Again, do I see him fighting Erislandy Lara? Possibly not, We know the problems that Austin Trout gave Erislandy Lara. And there's a lot of similarity. We know the problems Trout gave Cotto. Trout beat Cotto. And you'd have to say that there are certain similarities between Trout and Lara. And in fact, when the 2 guys fought, Lara won convincingly. So you think if Trout can give Cotto those problems, perhaps Lara can give him those problems twice over. So I don't think the Mayweather fight happens. I'm sceptical of whether the Cotto fight happens. The Triple G fight is interesting because Triple G is a guy who finds it much harder to get good fights compared to Miguel Cotto or compared to Floyd Mayweather. There's less people queuing up to fight Triple G than there is those 2 guys. And I think Lara has made it clear on a number of occasions he's very keen for the Golovkin fight. That's a very interesting fight if it does happen. Initial instinct is that Lara would be very, very small for £160. Triple G has just put in a performance against Willie Monroe Jr., where he knocked Monroe Jr. out in the first half of that fight. I guess, Willie Monroe Jr., Erislandy Lara, there's certain similarities there. Cuban guys, they both have similar styles. So I guess you could say that, Triple G has proven he can beat that kind of opponent. Triple G is the much bigger man. You'd perhaps side with Golovkin. And, I think on balance, Golovkin is the favourite for that fight. What I would say is I think Willie Monroe Jr., he's a talent, but it's very early in his career. I think Lara is a much more advanced version of the two. And if you look at the way Lara fought against Canelo, and you look at the way he fought against Rodriguez, I think you do have to start to appreciate that there are different strings to the bow of Erislandy Lara, and he is a difficult man to catch, a difficult man to close down. He's got really good defensive skills, and he's a very accurate puncher, a counter puncher as well. Triple G, as I've said, he's a guy who is not difficult to score points against, and there's this whole perception. I think Triple G's defence is flawed. A lot of other people seem to think that he is defensively open just because he can take the power of opponents. Well, if that's the case, he'll certainly be defensively open against Lara, because Lara won't be, Lara isn't knocking out Rodriguez at 154. He won't be knocking out Triple G at 160. So my point is that Lara's got an active jab. He'll be able to catch Triple G on the way in. He'll be able to catch Triple G on the way out. He'll be able to counterpunch Triple G. Golovkin is not, unhittable. And Lara, with his amateur kind of style, would potentially appreciate the fact that he wouldn't be able to knock out Triple G, so would be looking to score, would be looking to outpoint. Now, Canelo, in my mind, is a very advanced fighter. I rate Canelo very, very highly indeed. And Canelo was unable to cut down the ring on Triple G to the extent that he won that fight with certainty. I know he got the decision, I know there's huge debate over it, but a lot of people think, he essentially failed, and in that night the boxer beat the fighter. The question is, will Triple G be able to cut down the ring and close in on Erislandy Lara? If he does, if he can pin Lara in a corner and prevent him from running, he probably wins by knockout. Triple G's a big puncher, Lara's a much smaller man. We've seen Lara dropped by the likes of Alfredo Angulo before. So if Triple G can cut the ring down and position him like he did against Martin Murray, like he did against Matthew Macklin, then it's very likely he knocks out the smaller man, Erislandy Lara. However, if Erislandy Lara can stay on his bicycle, if he can run around the ring, and if he can try and score points, Triple G is open to the jab. He's open to being counterpunched. He's open to being hit on the way in. And if Lara doesn't get, stuck in a corner, can he run for 12 rounds? Can he sneak a points decision? I don't rule it out. I really don't rule it out after seeing the Canelo fight. Right now I have Lara beating Miguel Cotto. I have him a slight underdog against Triple G, but very live in that fight. And I think the Floyd Mayweather fight is a fight that simply doesn't happen. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. How did you rate Lara last night?